the scene. He's got the voice that's mean, asking those questions that you never seen. He's got that fire, burning bright and clean. Andrew Keen making waves, break the routine on the Keen on show. He brings the heat, asking the minds, digging deep till they bleed. No sugar-coated truths, no lies to deceive. Andrew Keen, the master of the interview beat. He's got the knowledge, he's got the flair, challenging ideas with a fearless stare. With every question, he's uncovering what's there. Andrew Keen, a truth seeker, he's aware.
Hello, everybody. A few days ago, we did a show with our book critic, Bethanne Patrick, on notable nonfiction books for the fall of 2024. There were some remarkable books, and we're following up, Bethanne, with your top 7 novels. One of the things that strikes me is in our hyper-real age, where nonfiction is almost impossible to believe. You couldn't make a lot of the stories up that we're seeing. Of course, we're looking at them all every evening on our television now in the upcoming election. How does fiction broadly stack up against nonfiction in fall 2024? Are some of the fiction books in an odd way more real than the nonfiction ones?
I do think in some ways they show reality more than the nonfiction ones do. And that is because I believe novelists are taking a very hard look at what's really going on and finding new ways. It doesn't have to be realism in the novel to show something that's real.
So novelists, of course, have more tools in a sense to invent and reinvent, and theorize and re-theorize. Of these 7 novelists, who are most ambitious in terms of form? Of the 7 novels that you suggest, who are in their own way as novelists trying to play around with our sense of reality?
You know, it's really interesting that you asked that, because I have always been quite interested in experimental fiction. That is one of my great loves. And so I think these are actually pretty straightforward novels for the most part, considering how many really different ones there are. But I will say that there are different perspectives. And so I can tell you we've got a book that has a structure that mirrors a journey. We've got a book that actually is so autobiographical yet completely fictive that you
Is that the
wonder.
Hollingworth book?
No, it's the Greenwell. And then we've also got
the Greenwell book is called Small Rain. I'm always nervous of a novel with the word small in it, and sometimes novels are a bit small. Is this not a small book?
It's not a small book. No. I will go to the mat with anyone about Garth Greenwell. He is a genius. His first novel, What Belongs to You, was, well, it was one sentence, but that doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter that he managed to write an entire novel, in one sentence. What matters is that it was a straight on, no holds barred look at what desire is for a gay man, what sex is for a gay man, and not trying to pretend and put it behind euphemisms or closed doors, and also not trying to pretend that it's all pretty and sanitized. It was absolutely groundbreaking. And I think Small Rain is absolutely groundbreaking as well, because this is the story of something that really happened to Greenwell. He had, and I'm not going to get the medical term right, he had a terrible aortic tear. And the artery, I thought this would be something heart related, but it's something that happened in his abdomen. And evidently it's so incredibly painful. It's beyond painful. And so the protagonist of Small Rain is a poet who is in the hospital having suffered this terrible medical anomaly. It doesn't usually happen to someone so young. And the book is about pain and weakness and frailty and sickness and how awful it is to be dependent on, a medical system, but it's also about being cared for by a lover, by a partner, by someone who truly, truly wants you to get better. It's about getting better for something, for a future. And it is all, I can't say it's all true because he did write it as a novel, but it is all authentic.
Yeah, and it's these novelists, in comparison with the nonfiction writers, their version of reality is much neater, more packaged. Another of the writers is Alan
Yes.
Hollinghurst, Our Evenings. Tell us about this book.
Well, this book, Hollinghurst deserves a much wider readership in the United States. He wrote The Swimming Pool Library, The Line of Beauty.
Yeah, and I don't want to, because I'm following on from him. The Swimming Pool, of course, is also a book about a gay take, I guess,
Yes.
in some ways, on reality.
Well, this one
Right
is
way of
too,
putting
but hear me out, Andrew, hear me out. Alan Hollinghurst is a chronicler of queer life, just as Garth Greenwell is, but their style is utterly different. And this story has, again, I don't spoil endings, it has the most meaningful ending that I never, ever would have seen coming. It is a story about a British Burmese man and his way through life and his lovers and his partner. Really gorgeous. The story is incredible. But then when you get to the last chapter, you will see,
if you get to the last chapter.
if you get to but there's no reason why you shouldn't, because it is a great book. It's a beautiful story, and it's not about gay life as gay life. It's about gay life as human life. It's beautiful. Everyone loves it, and I guarantee anyone out there who's interested, Our Evenings, Alan Hollinghurst, fantastic read, should go on your list.
Is it going to be a bestseller? One of the books that on the list, I think, is almost a guaranteed bestseller, Paula Hawkins' The Blue Hour. I have to admit, I was a little surprised to see this come up on your list. You tend to be a literary fiction reader. Why did you choose to include The Blue Hour? Maybe I'm being unfair on Hawkins.
No, you're not being unfair. I mean, you're right. I tend to lean toward literary fiction. I like fiction that is a little, heavier and more meaningful. First of all, Paula Hawkins is a kick-ass writer. And second, this book really surprised me. And I'm surprised I haven't seen more people talking about it. This is not another Girl on the Train. This is different. And it's not really, it's suspenseful. There are deaths, but it is not about murder or thrills and chills. It's about a very twisted relationship. It's highly psychological. It has great atmosphere. It's set on a little island. It
in
is
Scotland. Yeah, I mean,
in
it sounds
Scotland.
very cinematic. It sounds
It
as if
is very
it's almost
cinematic,
a
but
screenplay.
it's not superficial. It was, I read it and thought, oh gosh, this is going to be all over the place. And I don't know. I haven't seen
Well,
it
it
all
will
over.
be all over the place. Wherever if you're in the airport, you will see it on the front stand. Some of the
I
other
hope
books
so.
won't. One of the things that always interests me about fiction are titles. I don't know if they sell or not, but the most curious title of your fiction books recommended for fall this year, Bethanne, is by Anna Montague. How does that make you feel, Magda Eklund? Before we get to the book itself, do you think titles matter? I have to admit that the longer the title, the more off-putting it could become.
I really wondered about this title as well. And I'll tell you something. There have been a lot of books in the past few years with these I don't know what you call them, these eccentric women's names, you know,
It almost sounds like another. I mean, not that I'm such a maven on fiction, but it sounds like another book that you see in airports or something.
it does. And I thought, oh, this is one of those, you know, books where you find out the protagonist is, I don't know, a high functioning autistic person, or they're a lifelong hoarder who just needs a great love to change things for them. It's not. It's a much more layered book. This is the one I mentioned where the structure mimics the journey. So Magda Eklund is a psychiatrist in Manhattan, and she has a lifelong friend, and the woman dies, and her husband, her widower, the woman's widower, says, will you take these ashes? I just can't deal with them in the apartment right now. And so she winds up taking the urn. If you look at the cover, you'll see that there's an urn, a cremains urn buckled in the seat next to Magda. And they go on this road trip, this highly unlikely and incredibly
I hope
foreshortened.
they don't go into. They're not going to Trump territory, do they?
No, they are not. They are not. They are going into Magda's inner life territory. I found it surprising. It goes back and forth, and that's what I mean about the road trip. You think you're going in one direction, and then suddenly things turn in another direction and another. But it's really life affirming, not heartwarming, life affirming. And
Probably, yeah. They could have come up with a better title. You're suggesting.
they could have come up with a better title, but I do recommend this very, very much. I was really struck by it when I read it, and it stayed with me. That was 3 or 4 months ago. It stayed with me.
Another book that you're recommending is Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. This one sounds interesting. Certainly escaping Manhattan and psychology, going back
Completely,
to Europe.
completely.
It sounds like a good story.
It's a great story. So Rachel Kushner is, you know, highly acclaimed for books like The Flamethrowers. She talk about doing her homework. This is a scenario, I don't even know how she cooked it up, but basically Sadie Smith is this 30-something woman who is a secret agent, and she gets sent to look into this crazy anarchic radical group in France who are all about going back to living on the land. What I loved about it is it's an espionage novel wrapped in an eco thriller, wrapped in an identity search, and there's going to be, you know, an older man, there's going to be a younger man, there's going to be Sadie wondering what she's gotten herself into. It's so great. I mean, again, talk about a book I can't put down. I could
Yeah,
not.
you couldn't make. I mean, it kind of reminds me in our nonfiction roundup from a few
It's like,
days
yes,
ago. You talked about Abbott Taylor's Eden Undone, but this sounds like a kind of a fictional version of that.
it really is, because you have all of the characters, you have all of the strange action, you have people, you don't know what their motivation is, you don't really understand everyone's interiority. I think Kushner has hit it out of the park again with Creation Lake.
And is this more on the popular Paula Hawkins model of, is this the kind of book that will sell tens of thousands rather than a few thousand?
You know, that's interesting. I mean, Kushner does sell a lot. I
What
don't
does
know.
selling a lot mean for fiction?
Selling a lot for fiction, I think, means, well, for mid-list is one thing, but for books like this by Hawkins and Kushner, I think we're talking, you know, 50,000
I mean, they
copies.
get significant, in
Yeah,
perhaps in contrast with some of the other authors, they probably get considerable advances for these.
absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, we won't get into this, but I don't know if advances are always deserved, but I do know that these two writers are going to earn out their advances.
Well, we know that advances often aren't deserved, and I don't actually think they benefit the publishing industry. That's another subject.
Yes.
One book that I'm guessing probably didn't get a Kushner Hawkins style advance is Rental House, and I'm gonna do a terrible job, I'm sure, with pronouncing the name of the author. Weike Wang, Weike Tell us about this book.
I believe it's a Weike Wang, but I'm not sure
Weike
either.
Wang, anyway.
That's okay. So this one, I don't think I've talked about it on here before, but I believe I've had it in the LA Times before. It's a December book, and December can be a real, tough time for publishers. There's not a lot of new releases coming out in December. This is a great one. Weike Wang wrote Jane is Okay. I'm trying to remember one of her other titles. It'll come to me. I love Rental House. It's sort of in two parts. So a young couple who live in Brooklyn go first to Cape
Is this
Cod.
the first novel written about a young couple in Brooklyn?
I know it's not, no, but they are a couple who is Asian American, and
another first.
Another first, but wait, they go to a rental house on Cape Cod with her parents, who are, I believe she's first gen. Her parents have come to the United States from China, and it's really uncomfortable. Nothing is right for the parents. The couple doesn't get any, joy out of this. It's just, this rental
Very
house.
intergenerational and
It is, yes.
American, Asian American.
But then in the second half, it's years later, and they go, here's another one you won't see coming. They go to a house in the Catskills. And they go to a cabin, a little community, in the Catskills, very hipster, and they have their own little house. And this is when his family comes in. And at first you think, they're having a lot more fun. Things are going better. It's easier. But you see that the problems are on both sides. The problems aren't about race. The problems are about family. It is really tough to share a rental house with family. And it's done with such grace and humor. It's really one of the loveliest books of 2024. And I just keep talking about it because I think Wang has actually given us truth instead of hyper reality. So even though the hyper
fiction does a better job, as we talked in our
as we said,
section. In a way, fiction writers have a better opportunity to describe what we consider truth or what we think about as truth, perhaps to package it up. So maybe the publishers made a mistake scheduling it for December. Do they tend to write books off, do you think, that they publish in
I hope not. I hope not. I hope
you haven't. And by the way, Bethanne, we should mention to all our viewers and listeners that you yourself have a new podcast out. So everyone should listen. A brief blurb about that.
I will give you a very brief blurb. The Book Maven, a literary review, is out now. Please subscribe on Substack, because eventually we're going to have all kinds of goodies there for subscribers. We just released episode 3 on October 11th, and we've got 10 episodes in season 1. In season 2, we're going to have interviews with some great people, including Min Jin Lee. So I'm very excited about that.
I'm sure it's much more curated and thought out, less spontaneous than Keen On.
It is, and only because we keep it at 30 minutes and we have different features. It really is sort of like a variety show. So far, I'm hearing good things. I'm having a great time with it, and I hope listeners will have a great time with it too.
But then I know that's your polite way of reminding me that you got to go out for dinner in about 4
4
minutes. So let's get to the final, your final suggested novel. Actually has the best title, or not the best title, sorry, the best cover. And again, I think covers on novels are way more important than on nonfiction. Shred Sisters by Betsy Lerner. Tell us about this, and tell us about, do you like this cover? I mean, people just watching, people just listening won't see this cover, but it's really
I really like this cover. I like the palette. I like the separation between the sisters. And, Betsy Lerner was an editor who turned literary agent. She's written some great craft
Yeah, she
books.
has a story. There was a Times piece about her
Mhm.
as a TikTok star, and now she's added novelist to her resume. So there's perhaps a hyper-real quality to her own career.
There is, and I am all for it. I want to say go, Betsy, go, because this book is so good. Talk about readable. You just dive right into it. And there are two sisters, Amy and Olivia, Ollie, and you are in their world in the 1960s and 1970s as they're growing up, then in the 1980s and 1990s and early 2000s as Ollie is falling apart with mental illness, and Amy is trying to construct a life that isn't all about taking care of her sister for, her parents when they're alive and when they're not. I was really, again, surprised by the end of this book, but it's very satisfying and it's well earned. And Betsy Lerner is proving that she is a great, great novelist. I cannot wait to read her next book. And I think this one was one that came from a very real place in her own life. And yet she's managed to, create fiction, again, that is real, not hyper real. And it is definitely something I recommend for perhaps before Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
Not
maybe
really.
in contrast to some novels that always seem to come out of creating writing school, she has had a life as a
Yes,
literary agent, as a TikTok star, very unusual woman. Maybe that comes out in her fiction.
it does. This is no MFA novel. This is a fully realized novel that it gets it all right all the way through. So Shred Sisters, definitely go out and get that now. But all of these, get them all.
Yeah, there's no FMA novels in this list. Finally, Bethanne, my unfair question at the end. You got one novel to read in the fall. Which one would it be?
Oh, just one of these.
Yeah,
Oh
you
my
can have
goodness.
one. You go to a desert island, you just take one of these books with you.
This is very, very tough. Okay, I am going to think hard. I'm going to say The Hollinghurst.
Wow, why?
Um, Again, because of its really beautiful portrayal of a life, but also its extra layer of meaning at the end that is highly relevant, but it's not overblown and it's not overdone.
It has then perhaps sometimes people pigeonhole novelists and novels. It has a universal quality, even if he's well known, Alan Hollinghurst, as a writer about gay life.
Yes, it absolutely does. This is not a novel. It's not that it's not challenging, it's that it is so welcoming.
Well, I'm going to ask an even more unfair question. You chose Sarah Lewis's Unseen Truth as your best nonfiction book of the fall. If you had to choose one of these, the Hollinghurst or the Lewis, to take on a journey, which one would it be?
I would choose the Lewis.
Well, Bethanne Patrick, you're always dealing with my unfair questions in a very fair way. Honored to have you on the show. I know you've got to rush off for a dinner in Washington, D.C. We will see you certainly by the end of the year to talk more books, literature.
Definitely.
It's always an honor. Thank you so much.
Thanks.